Reach is the first game from nDreams studio Elevation, a studio that was set up explicitly to make AAA VR games. We've played plenty of great games from nDreams' core studio in the past: The Assembly, Phantom, Covert Ops, Fract, Synapse. They know how to make believable worlds with stunning graphics and some great VRAF interactions. But something happened, and a new wave of nDreams games came along that shook all of our faith a bit. Ghostbusters VR was a massive disappointment, and the PSVR2 version of fast-paced first-person shooter Frenzies just isn't happening anymore. So the question, at least on my mind, is whether Studio Elevation has what it takes to right the ship and put nDreams back on track. Reach kicks off introducing us to Rosa, running, jumping, climbing, and parkouring around the city, running from explosions, helicopter fire, and shooting a ton of enemies. It's non-stop action and feels like a more polished version of Stride Fates. You can climb almost anything that looks climbable, and you'll be constantly looking for alternate routes forward. Very Uncharted 2-like. Crazy shit goes down, and then the next thing you know, you're in some ancient civilization. And all that high-octane action ends in a flash the second you meet Atlas, a living statue who starts explaining what this place is and then proceeds to, in a very video game-like fashion, demand that you start running errands for him. This is when the pace of the game screeches to a grinding halt, and you're suddenly presented with what Reach actually is: a puzzle game. Practically every door you slowly pry open from this moment forward presents you with a big-ass puzzle room. Seriously, you walk into a room, you have no idea where you're supposed to go or how to get there, or even what you're supposed to do while you're there. So you wander around the room looking for the exit, some platforms you can activate, or symbols on the wall that you can shoot, and slowly make your way through it. Which is fine. I really enjoyed all the shrines in Breath of the Wild, and getting to use all the parkour skills you have and all the powers you accrue in Reach in order to figure this stuff out can be satisfying, especially since these rooms are really well crafted. But it's also draining, physically and mentally. Puzzle rooms here and there would have been fun, a nice diversion, but in Reach, it's constant. You'll no sooner get through one, breathe a sigh of relief, happy to get back to adventuring and exploring, and you'll slowly pry open another door a minute later to reveal another massive puzzle room. And the number of times I said out loud, "Are you kidding me?" during my 7-hour playthrough was ridiculous. It's as if nDreams knew we'd all complain too much if the game was too short, and said, well, we'll show you.
God, that statue is massive. That's a living statue.
And shockingly, there's not a whole lot to do between all this either. Combat is extremely basic, using just a bow and arrow. Over time, you're introduced to fire, shock, and ice arrows, with corresponding bugs to find and crush to restock your ammo, which is kind of, by the way, when you start realizing nDreams is just throwing whatever nonsense comes to mind into the game. But since resorting to the default arrow and just popping in and out of cover always worked, why would I try to get creative? This isn't Arcanage level of combat. This isn't even Undead Citadel level of combat. Creativity yields nothing. Being stealthy feels like a waste of time and just a way to get yourself in trouble if it doesn't work out. And the AI isn't exactly bright, so I never felt any kind of satisfaction from clearing a room of enemies. And when the music or sound effects cut out randomly, the bland combat really reveals itself. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention that you've got this cool Captain America style throwing shield, but I never once used it for combat. Instead, I only ever used it for climbing or puzzle solving. Every so often there's a great chase scene where I get to use my skills for something other than solving puzzles, and that's where Reach really shines. It almost makes the rest of the game worth slogging through.
Don't stop! It's still close!
The upgrade system here is kind of set up like Metroid. There are stations to upgrade your health, arrow capacity, and even places where you get brand new abilities, like being able to grapple to these bars and being able to climb these glowing blocks. But the world isn't set up like a Metroidvania. Reach would have been so much more satisfying if it was set up like the first Tomb Raider reboot, but instead you're pretty much on a linear path, and you're given new abilities at the exact right moment, just when you need them. I love new abilities, and the ones here are actually great, and make Reach more fun to play as the game progresses. The implementation is just strange. Some of you watching might know that I wasn't impressed by the trailers for Reach, but I honestly thought that once I played it, I'd understand. And to clarify, I'd say most of that initial concern came from the art style. Sure, the game starts off in the real world and it looks pretty great, but so much of Reach takes place in this ancient civilization with really basic geometry, repetitive textures, bland decor. So much so that sometimes I went in circles and didn't realize it. And sometimes I'd progress into a new area and not even realize it. I'm guessing this is a personal preference, but I just don't like the look of all these characters or these environments. There is a point later in the game where you get out of the temple-looking areas with the promise that you're entering the ancient city. But man, if they didn't tell me, I would have noticed the difference. There are some great areas though that take advantage of the verticality, and if you've got any fear of heights like I do, you're gonna feel it. And as repetitive as it felt hours in, I enjoyed what they did here. My biggest disappointment has to be the level design though. For a game that holds your hand almost constantly with big signage everywhere, constant voiceovers, and a floating robot companion telling you where to go next, it's crazy that sometimes you'll still find yourself wandering around, wondering what to do next. It makes no sense, and suddenly you'll realize why there are so many big signs everywhere, constant voiceovers, and floating robot companions telling you where to go next. It's because the level design just doesn't make any sense, and if it wasn't there, you'd be completely lost. Which is shocking, because Reach is pretty linear, and your little robot companion generally does sit at your destination, letting you know where to go next. But man, I spent an hour in this room alone because the drone was sitting in the wrong place. Sometimes when you accomplish something and reach a dead end, you have to backtrack, and sometimes there's a new path forward that leads you back where you came from. So when a bug pops up preventing you from moving forward, you'll have no idea if you're lost or if the game glitched out. Well, unless it's an obvious bug like these invisible walls I encountered, which fortunately loading my last save game fixed both of these, thankfully. The worst though is that the story and the characters and voiceovers are so dull and forgettable that you'll set out on a mission to retrieve something or restore power or some other stupid video game thing, and you'll open the door to a puzzle room and immediately forget what you were doing. Not that it matters. Reach tries to give Rosa a backstory during the first few minutes of the game and then just gives up even trying. They set up this whole story about saving humanity and this war between the living statues and this ancient civilization, and it's just so hard to care. These characters are just so needy and forgettable.
Just tell me where to go, and then leave me to think.
I know it's a little strange that we're this far into the review and I haven't even touched on any of the technical aspects. And listen, from a technical standpoint, Reach looks fine. It runs reprojected, but it's sharp enough, and looking at my footage here, it does seem like it's using DFR. I didn't detect any noticeable frame rate drops on the base PS5, and the PlayStation 5 Pro doesn't add anything performance-wise to the mix. The lighting can be nice, but I would have loved some dynamic shadows or flickering lights or anything to make the world feel more alive. I was thrilled to see that nDreams included some sliders for brightness, contrast, and gamma though, allowing me to customize it the way I like, and take advantage of the deep blacks of the PSVR2 OLED panel. The sound design's fine too, pretty standard stuff, but nothing here stands out. There's no memorable themes, and the sound effects are pretty basic, but the soundtrack does feel epic at least, and really punches up the faster paced sections considerably. I never felt any headset haptics, even when the whole world was shaking, and the Sense controller haptics definitely could have used a boost here. Over the past few months leading up to launch, nDreams stopped referring to Studio Elevation as their AAA team, and after playing Reach I can understand why. I think they're trying to set expectations. When comparing it to other similarly priced games on the platform, Reach can't compete with Metro, Arcanage, or even Behemoth, none of which I'd call AAA. But despite all my complaints, Reach isn't a bad game, and at times you can see where the development time and budget went to. But big budget or not, the poor level design can cause Reach to feel very not fun for very long stretches of time. And the over-reliance on puzzle rooms just to pad out the runtime hurts the pace of the game considerably. There's moments of greatness here, but sadly, they're just too few and far between.
I need to get out of here!
Watch out! Across that debris!
I need to get out of here!